How much do you earn every year from your referrals? What if you could dramatically increase that number with a few simple steps? Our guest this week is Stacey Brown Randall, Referral Ninja Master and creator of the Referrals Without Asking strategy. Her program is designed to generate referrals without asking, without manipulation, or feeling inauthentic. We'll discuss the finer points of this strategy and how to make a consistent and easy process for us, our clients, and our referral sources. We'll define and differentiate terms like referral, word of mouth buzz, introduction, and warm lead, and why your response to each of these should be different. The benefit we're looking for is that referral clients are vetted, easier to close, and have that transfer of trust from the referral source. So we want to make sure we're putting the extra effort into maintaining those referral relationships. This is an important episode, and I can't wait for you to listen. Let's start the show. I'm John Strohmeyer, and this is the 5-Star Counsel Podcast. The market for legal services is shifting, and lawyers who don't adapt will be left behind. This podcast gives you a competitive edge in today's market by sharing the client service lessons you probably didn't learn in law school or in law practice. Let's start the show. Hey 5-Star listeners, before we start, I want to tell you about our amazing sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a virtual receptionist service for small businesses with a specialty in working with solo and small law firms. I signed up with them within weeks of starting my firm because they are affordable for even the smallest solo practice. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in Spanish or English, screen and schedule new leads, and can even take payments. And now they're answering calls 24 hours a day. So even when you're asleep, they're still working. Even beyond the phone, they've got live agents and chatbots ready to capture leads on your website, by text, and by Facebook Messenger. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front lines so you can work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $70 a month for calls and $100 a month for chats. Smith AI is offering a free trial, and our podcast listeners get an extra $100 discount code with promo code 5STAR. That's FIVESTAR. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI. Hey, Stacey, I'm really glad you're here today.
John, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, I am too. And we are going to get into what seemingly is so easy and obvious for lawyers because most of us, or at least most of my practice is referral driven. But having read your book, there is a lot more to it. And when I think about it in the context of service, it comes down to how do we make this a consistent, easy process, not only for us, but for our referral sources. And before I just kind of keep going and regurgitating everything I've learned, I'm going to hand it over to you to just give us the top lines for us to start from.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people recognize when we talk about referrals, I think people think about them in two ways. There are these magical things that just happen and we feel really lucky when they do and it's awesome. And we don't give much thought to them because we think it's not something we can have a process or that we can have any type of control around. So it's like this, referrals are great when they come. So there's a lot of people who kind of operate from that mentality. And then there's others who have heard advice for so long of how to go about getting more referrals into their practice, and they can't stand that advice. They're like, I don't want to ask, I don't want to pay, I don't want to have to be gimmicky and, and cheesy and overly promotional. And I don't want to network to have to know a ton of people to be able to have people remember to refer me. And I think that it's always a good place to start is recognizing for your listeners, just to kind of take a gut check for themselves to be like, what do I believe about referrals? Like, what is it that I think about referrals, or what do I think they mean to my practice and to like how I grow, right? How I grow my business. And I think that's just a really important place to start is what are your preconceived beliefs, which are probably rooted in some level of experience that you have around referrals. And then just being open to the conversation we're going to have about looking at them differently from how we define them to who is actually your referral sources, to how we go about creating, as you said, that repeatable process to making sure we're taking care of the right people so that we get more referrals.
Yeah, and this goes back to something I figured out for myself 5 or 6 years ago. As an estate planner, my clients are all individuals. So conceptually, I'm a B2C business. So business to consumer, But I realized that all of the marketing was better served because my best clients came from referrals as it being business to business, B2B marketing. I needed to look at and more closely focus on those referral sources, which was a weird shift for me to think about. It's like, well, I want the individual clients, but the best clients are coming from my referral sources. And, fast forward, here we are years later. But what it ends up being is, how do I make things work the best for my referral sources? Because that's when they think about me.
Yeah, it's like everything in life happens because of a trigger, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I need an alarm clock to get up in the morning, right? And so the trigger for me to get out of bed is either the alarm clock goes off and I get out of bed, or I hit snooze, right? But there's always a trigger that is typically making the next thing happen. The only reason why my children get into the car on the way to get to school in the morning is because they're the trigger of them being yelled at. You know what I mean? Like, everything in life happens from a trigger. And sales is the same way. And drilling down to referrals are the same way too. The problem is how we've always thought about, and how other people have been teaching for decades about how referrals happen, is that they teach that referral happens because you trigger it by asking for them, or by creating a loyalty or referral type program and offering to pay for them, or, being really gimmicky and promotional and putting stickers on things that say, I'm never too busy for your referral, or in your email signature, right? Don't keep me a secret, refer me to everybody those are the things that we've been taught, because like with everything in life, we're looking for something to trigger the referral. But when you really understand the human dynamic and the psychology behind why a referral happens in the first place, we have to take the focus completely off of us doing the triggering, right? Yes, we are a part of this process, but it's recognizing where the referral starts. And it starts with your referral source, who in your world, right? Your referral source knows somebody needs a will. Like, they just had a baby and they need to have some estate planning documents, and they need to have a will. They probably need to have power of attorney, right? Like, there's all these things that they need to do, that your referral source is helping the person. And how they are helping them is by referring them to you to take care of them. And so when we think about, in the old way, I call them old school referral triggers. When we think about trying to trigger referrals try to trigger them happening in the old mentality, we focus on ourselves. Am I asking? Am I offering money? Am I doing these things? Is it in my email signature line and all my, newsletters that I'm open for referrals? Like, we think the triggering comes from us. And in reality, where the triggering happens from is the relationship we have with our referral sources. And the deeper and more strengthened that can be, allowing those opportunities when they come across people to refer to us, that they only would think of us because of how we've nurtured that relationship. And that is ultimately how we are able to not only have the right relationship with our referral sources, but continue to deepen it and strengthen it to get more referrals as well.
And I want to dig more into the psychology and, some of the basic definitions of this. But I do want to say, I was at a specialist dentist yesterday getting a 1.5 2-year plus checkup on some work that was done. And they had the framed card sitting in the waiting room. Don't forget to refer us, or whatever it said. And I just remember thinking, this is a specialized dentist. The only reason I ever even would have thought to go to this dentist is I had seen several other dentists, including, other specialized dentists who couldn't figure things out. And then coming back to my original dentist, who said, this is the one we're going to send you to now. And he was able to figure it out. At no point was I ever thinking, oh, I need a, mouthful of words dentist who's going to help me. And that's totally fine. He is so far down his little niche that when it's right, the referrals are coming from other dentists who know, oh, this is the problem. You need this sort of solution. I wasn't just walking down the street saying, you know what I need? I need this kind of dentist. And ultimately, that helps him, it helps this dentist if he'd recognize this is where you sit in the pipeline, and it's totally fine. You're not going to get anybody just wandering in off the street for this specialized dental work. But before we get too far down the mistakes, we need to start, I think, with what is an actual referral.
Yeah, and I just want to say this about the dentist thing. Like, the reality is what are the odds you're going to come across somebody who has the exact same problem that you had to deal with, that you would even need to send a person, right, to refer them to the dentist. I mean,
Exactly.
right, where we pay attention to is where are we more likely to get referrals from, which in his case would be other dentists. My favorite, though, is every time I see my dentist and he is like, don't forget, or the hygienist is like, don't forget, you get, a one of those, the automatic, toothbrushes or whatever. And I'm always like, do I get one every single time I refer? Like when I've referred to the fifth person, am I getting my fifth toothbrush from you guys? Like I always think that's always so interesting from that perspective. It's like the same gift they're going to give you for referring. I'm like, what happens when I give you the third or fourth one? Am I going to have another, automatic toothbrush?
All of these toothbrushes.
Right. But yes, okay, let's define referral. I think that's really important in terms of what are we talking about? And I think the definition of the referral is best understood by everybody recognizing why you want them, right? So if I were to say, John, why do you want a referral? Like what is so important with a new client being referred to you? What are typically the reasons you would tell me that you would want a client that's referred?
The big reason that I think about is it's going to be a lot easier for me to move forward with this client because it's more than just a cold lead of somebody who searched me up on the internet and doesn't really know that much about me. The trust of transfer or transfer of trust from the referral source back to me makes everything easier. Plus, the person who's referring me hopefully knows why I'm appropriate and not some competing professional.
Right. So the idea here is because typically when a client is referred to you, not always, but most of the time, they are easier to close, quicker to close, right? They already show up trusting you because the trust has been transferred from the person who said, you've got to go talk to John. And they know they have a problem they need to solve. They are very aware of the fact that I'm a prospect and I need to buy something, right? Service, product, whatever it is to solve my problem. And so when you think about why we want a referral, the definition comes from there. So the definition of an actual true referral has two parts. And it means number one, there's always a personal connection. You've got to be connected to the prospect by the referral source because that's how the transfer of trust happens. That's how you know who is this wonderful prospect that you've told that needs me. You know when you've been connected to them. And the second thing is that there needs to be a need identified. The reason why the prospects are typically quicker to close and easier to close is because they know they're the prospect. They already know they have a problem. It's already been identified. And now they're trying to decide, are you the person who's going to solve it for me? And they come to you and they're like, and I already trust you because Sam said I should trust you. Right. So everything about why we want a prospect referred to us is exactly how we define them. Personal connection, which is made by the referral source to the prospect to you. And then, of course, the need identified. And those are the two parts that make it a referral. But what we have found is that we use the word referral in situations where it does not apply. And I think it's because we have used different sales lingos or prospect types interchangeably for so long, we've diluted the power of what a referral is. So when you hear me say referral, just know I mean that a prospect has been sent to you, connected to you by a referral source, and that need has been identified, which means word of mouth buzz, or sometimes called word of mouth referrals. I'm always like, those are two separate things. But word of mouth buzz is not the same thing as a referral. Neither is an introduction and neither is a warm lead. Those are actually terms that we have just for a very long time used interchangeably, but they're actually four different types of prospects.
Right. And so, just hearing they're all different types of prospects, it doesn't mean somebody hasn't given your name out, but we're going to treat them all a little bit differently.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And it's word of mouth buzz where somebody would have given your name out, right? And then it's that idea that, so let me just define word of mouth buzz, introduction, and warm lead in relation to a referral, and then talk about why this matters, because there's a very specific reason why this matters. And so if you think about word of mouth buzz, it means I'm having a conversation with my neighbor. They just had a brand new baby and they're like, oh my gosh, we're going out of town for the first time and we're going to leave our baby and the grandmas are coming to take care of it or whatever. And they're like, and we don't have a will. Right. In that moment, I'm like, oh my God, I got to call John. Like totally call John. Here's his name. Here's his number. It'll be awesome. And then the new mom goes back into the house and the baby's screaming and completely forgets about who John is.
Right.
It's word of mouth buzz. And when I see you, I'm like, John, oh my God, I was just talking to somebody the other day, just had a baby, totally needs a will. Like, I told him to call you. And you're like, who? Who is they? Who is this person who now needs a will because they've had a baby? You're not in the driver's seat. Word of mouth buzz is, I know somebody who has a need, but I never actually connected them to you. I kind of left it in their corner, the prospect's corner, to call you. And sometimes the pain that the prospect has will be great enough that they will take that contact information or look you up on Google and they will reach out. And then they'll tell you, oh yeah, my neighbor Stacey told me I needed to call you. So yes, sometimes word of mouth buzz can flip itself into a referral. It doesn't usually, because usually the person that you've just said, yeah, call John, he'll be great. They go back to life and they get busy and they forget even the conversation even happened, let alone that there's an attorney they're supposed to call. And so that's word of mouth buzz. It is, you definitely have identified a need, but the prospect was never connected to you. You just know somebody out there knows about you. Introduction, though, is the opposite of word of mouth buzz. You're connected. We just don't know why. So you get those kind of email introductions. They're like, hey, John, you should know Stacey. Stacey, you should know John. There'd be great synergy here. You guys should talk to each other. And you can't figure out, am I supposed to be selling or are they supposed to be selling to me? Right? Like, are we having coffee because it's just one more person to have in my network? Great. Or is it because actually there's a hidden referral here, like, but I just don't know who actually is the prospect. So that whereas the connection's been made, the need has never been identified. And so we don't actually know why we're being connected. And here's the thing, introductions for the sake of introductions are fine. I just want you to know that going into it. This is somebody that you just need to know in your network. It's not because you're going to buy from them or they're going to buy from you. Then you also know, of course, how to have the conversation, right? And then, of course, a warm lead is when someone says, John, I know this person needs your help. You should give them a call. But we don't actually know if they need our help or if they want us to call because we were never connected to them. And so we're not quite sure. With no connection, we're not quite sure if there is a true need. There could be, but we don't know. And now we have to start chasing versus our referral source connecting us, right? And so that warm lead could be an actual referral.
Right. And there's a whole long line that we could go down for specifically for legal ethics on, can we even follow up with people when somebody has just mentioned, oh, Bob Smith needs this? That, I'll leave that to everybody. That's not really what we need to get into today, because just focusing on, one, making sure that we recognize what an actual referral is so that we can then, what, Stacey, what do we do once we have an actual live referral?
Yes. So here's the thing. The reason why I want you to be able to say, hey, this is a referral is because how you respond is going to be different. Very different from when you get word of mouth buzz. I want you to know, ooh, this is close to a referral, but it's not quite yet a referral. And this is how I respond. So I can flip it into a referral. Same thing with introduction. Same thing with warm lead. I want you to know when you're faced with any of those 4 types of scenarios and prospects, I want you to know how to respond, because that's your best chance at saving what could become a lost referral if you don't know how to flip it into a referral. But when it is a referral, right? And when we receive that referral, it's your recognition that somebody just put their reputation on the line and referred you to somebody by connecting you, and then making sure that that person also had a need identified. You're still probably going to have to make sure that, qualify them and make sure that they're the type of client you can help. We don't always want our referral sources doing that for us. I know some say you should, some say you shouldn't. From that perspective, I just want people in the habit of referring me. After they're in the habit of referring me, and if I'm not getting ideal, then I can work with them on kind of what that looks like. But the idea is that when we're receiving those referrals, we need a strategy in place to A, take care of those new clients that have just been referred to us, of course, right? B, to thank the referral source for the referral they just sent us. And then C, have a long-term strategy of how we're going to take care of that referral source, because you can't just send a thank you note every time they refer you and think that's going to unleash some like river of referrals or some type of referral explosion. We need a way to take care of them so that we are really deepening the relationship we have with them, so they'll continue to refer us in between the thank you for the referral you just sent me. So there's a number of things we kind of need to have in place. The good thing is that this is not something you need to be doing daily, weekly, or even monthly, but you do need to have a strategy in place to take care of the people who refer you, because that is the one way that we actually get more and better referrals.
And I want to talk more about the long-term strategy, but there are I think we've got to go through the babyer steps first. I mean, the thank you notes, our moms all made us write those growing up. And then the moment we went to college, we threw off the yoke and we could be, uncaring adults who don't have to do that anymore.
We have the intention, right? It's all, we had the thought. We intended to.
Right. That's right. We have this intention. We think we're going to take care of people, even if it's just, well, I'll send them a 2-sentence email because that's very easy. Email is easy. And because podcasting is an audio and not a visual medium, nobody can see your, you close your eyes in pain while you win. So, Stacey, please explain why that's not good enough.
Yeah. So, okay, here's the thing. You're absolutely right. Most of us, depending, I guess, maybe in our generation, right? We did learn how to write a thank you note. We do know how to do it. We just don't. And usually the excuse is, I just forgot. I just got busy. I sent the email. I sent the text. Isn't that enough? And what people don't realize is that the number one thing I hear from folks is this bemoaning of, I refer people who never even acknowledge that I referred them. And your referral sources, because I may not be hearing from your referral sources specifically, but I hear from them all the time, right? People will see my content and stuff that's out there and they're like, why can't people write thank you notes once you've referred them? I'm like, it's like an epidemic, right? And the idea here is because what they're recognizing and what they know and what they want you to recognize is when they do refer to you, they do put their reputation on the line. And whereas referring you is not about you, they do want acknowledgement and recognition for the fact that they did do it, because we are humans and that's how we're built. And so they do want to be thanked. And unfortunately, when you thank in a text message or you thank in an email, it's forgotten in exactly like 2.3 seconds. It's just noise. It's like, oh yeah, I got thanked, but they don't remember that you thanked them, which means if you're going to take the time to thank someone, let's do it right and get a little runway out of that thank you, which is why I always say the only proper way to thank somebody is in a handwritten thank you card that you handwrite, that you don't outsource to a robot or a third party or an assistant. And I know there's a lot of people groaning already because they're thinking about how busy they are. But when somebody hands you a client, and you're going to make thousands of dollars off of them, I think the least you could do is take the 2 minutes and sit down with a note card and write a thank you note to the person who referred them to you. But here's the thing. I was going to say, but here's the thing. It's not only writing the thank you note. It's not only writing the thank you note that matters. It also matters because the thank you note is typically kept. And then it's usually moved once or twice and reread every time it's moved before it eventually probably lands in some box or some recycle bin. But the idea is that it tells them that they're worth your time because you took time to thank them. An email and a text message can't do that.
Right. And this is where, when I look back at service, so much of it is simple, easy things to do. From my time at the hotel, the things that people would get so excited about in terms of, over the top service, these were never expensive things. Oh, you sent chocolate covered strawberries up to the room? Yeah, those are essentially free. The pastry chef is going to be there anyway. You've got one person whose job it is first thing in the morning. Once they're done making bread, they're going to make 35 or 40 strawberries and it's ready. And it costs, you have that built-in cost. So much of those things are just the little touches that they're not truly free, but in the context of what we're spending and what we're making, they are, they're rounding errors on what we're doing. And, a tiny card, it does force you to sit down. And even for me, I will admit to having looked online for how can I find the machine that will replace my awful handwriting, because the son and the brother of a doctor, I have awful handwriting. But I'm there to sit down and write, and now I'm in the process of ordering better cards that absorb the ink faster so it doesn't smear because of the pens I use.
So here's the thing. I have people tell me all the time, I have the worst handwriting. How do I get out of writing a thank you card? And my answer is, I have a twofold answer for you. Number one, write slower. Number two, print. Because then it may be just a little bit more readable. And that means you got to slow down. You got to slow down to write slower, right? And to print. But it's important and it's impactful. And it costs you nothing other than a stamp and a little bit of time, because more than likely you have a stack of thank you cards sitting around, or you can buy them quite inexpensively, right? And then send them. But what we don't recognize and what we overlook in the moments of, oh, I'm just so busy, is the impact that's going to have on the person who's just referred you. And even those people who say, like, sometimes when you're going to send a thank you note for someone who referred you, you realize you don't have their address. So you need to reach out and like ask for their address if you can't find it on Google. And they'll even come back and say, oh, you don't have to send me anything. I'm happy to do it. Don't listen to them. Like, still send them the thank you note, because what I want is that ability for them to be reminded more than one time, because a thank you note has a shelf life to it, that they did refer you and that you did thank them for that and acknowledge it.
Yes. And so going back, you had three things. There was the thanking, there's the long-term strategy, and I can't remember if it was the first or the second thing that I can't read in my own notes. So this is where you get to fill in and tell me what was the third, the middle item.
Well, no. So you're right. That was second and third, right? So okay. Number 3 was the long-term strategy. And number 2 was making sure that you are thanking them immediately. And number 1 is just making sure, obviously, you have a process to follow up with the prospect that's been referred to you as well. But, focusing in on those referral sources, that's 2 and 3. That's where we're taking care of the person who referred.
Right. And so I'm going to have us skip past taking care of new referral or new leads, because that's not really why you're here. We're here to talk about, well, how do we take care of these referral sources so that they, one, don't get pissed off that we didn't thank them, but 2, keep on doing it in the future. And this is where your long-term strategy of, again, it's going to be taking care of them, but it's not showering them with, 8% of your budget.
Right. It's a very precise number. Here's the thing I always tell folks. Yes, there's a strategy and a process that we want to build out. And yes, what these outreaches or touch points to our referral sources are going to look like is built within a framework based on human dynamic and the ability to stay top of mind and be memorable and meaningful. And how we're going to do that and how often we're going to do that and then what we're going to say we're going to do it. Yes, there's a process and there's a system behind all of it. Because there has to be, or as business owners, we won't get it done. Let's be honest, right? But the reality of it is, where this comes from, where this starts, is that all we're ultimately doing is making sure that our referral sources know how much we appreciate them. And then we're doing it with the right level of intentionality and having a cadence to it. So it doesn't feel like we only talk to them once a year, but we're also not trying to do something every single month or 22 times a year, right? I mean, there's a rhythm and a cadence to this that makes this work, as long as your intentionality and your authenticity is in the right place. I know for me, all day long, I'd rather just take care of my referral sources, knowing that they're going to send me referrals, than just about anything else I've got to do from a sales or marketing or prospecting perspective. Like, that is the best use of my time. And so, but at the same time, your referral sources, they're not social media. You don't need to feed the machine every single day, right? And that's one of the best things about referrals is, with your referral sources, you're taking care of them. You're making sure that they understand that you appreciate them, and that you're making sure that you're deepening and strengthening their relationship with them. And this is what I always tell folks. Ultimately, we are trying to impact how our referral sources feel about us. And how we do that is by them knowing that we care about them, that we appreciate them, that we recognize that they're putting their reputation on the line when they refer to us. And we're honored, right, for that. And so we're trying to impact how they feel about us, because it's at the moment when we are impacting how someone feels about us, and this is all in a good way, not a manipulation way, right? But how they feel about it. So once I can impact that, I can then also direct how they think about us. And then that means every time we are doing outreach, to say the thank you, right? We can also be planting referral seeds, and that's starting them to think about us in a way we want them to think about us. And that really is the two pieces that come together for that long-term strategy, right? It is a strategy that we're building out that allows us to do, we call it touch points, right? But just think of them as like connection points or outreaches. Like this, you're going to do some outreach to your referral sources. You're going to use specific language. You're going to have the right type of touch points. And the touch points are dictated by who your referral sources are, not by a prescribed list of 5 things you have to do. But at the end of the day, it's going to matter, because it's going to come from you in a heartfelt way. There just happens to be a process and a system behind how you're going to make sure you remember to do it. And that's how I want people thinking about the process and the system. There is a customization to this. There is a uniqueness to this. They're your referral sources, and it's your personality, and it's how you want to take care of them. But the process and system behind it, just make sure that you do the things you say you're going to do, so you don't go dark on your referral sources for like 9 months because you got busy.
Right. We want to keep them in mind. And it's not just throwing something at them. One of the things that you say repeatedly, and I wouldn't disagree with, you're not giving people your branded swag.
Yes.
Why? You're not turning them into the advertisement as a gift, like, oh, thanks.
Right. It's a gift with my logo on it is a gift for me.
Right.
That you happen to then have, right? I mean, that's ultimately what it is. I mean, promos, here's the thing. Your prospecting and marketing strategy absolutely has a place for a promo swag. All of ours does, right? But at the end of the day, they don't have a place inside your referral strategy. And those are separate things. Your marketing strategy and your prospecting strategy are separate from your referral strategy. So promo swag does not have a place. And I think it's kind of hard for people to kind of like untangle themselves from what they believe or how I'm supposed to be taking care of my referral sources. And I always tell folks, I'm like, if it's all about them and it's not about you, you're probably in the right place. Because some people are like, I'm gonna send them a Yeti and I can't put my logo on it. All that money I'm gonna spend on that Yeti, but yet my logo is not going on it. I'm like, they'll remember it longer if it doesn't have your logo on it. And the Yetis, because I don't know about you, but we get a lot. The Yetis that eventually, when the Yeti shelf is too full, the right. Yetis that get taken to Goodwill or thrown in the trash can are usually the ones with logos on it. The ones that are kept are the ones that have meaning. And so that's just a random example. But like, I think that's the thing that people need to understand is when we're talking about taking care of your referral sources, we're not talking about promo swag. We're not talking about your newsletter that you send out every month. That doesn't count as a touch point either, right? We're not, there's certain things that we do that we think is going to generate referrals, but it's really just a promotional or a sales piece for ourselves. And those aren't the same thing.
Right. And so just to put it one other way, it doesn't mean don't have those, but they don't fit in here. And oh my gosh, looking at the time, we do need to start closing down because we both have other things that we need to do today. But in terms of what we're thinking about in this, these are the meaningful gifts for folks, memorable and meaningful gifts for folks. It's going to be unique to everybody. Can you share at least one example of where you've done this before?
Yes.
What that looked like?
Yeah, but I do want to say that they're not just gifts, right? That is one of a different types of outreaches or connection points or touch points that you can do to your referral sources. And I think that's important to recognize. I have some people who never do a gift, right? That may mean that they're connecting with their referral sources in other ways, right? There's lots of different things that we can do, right? It's just a matter of what the cadence is going to look like in your plan. And so I'm going to give a gift example because you asked, but please, nobody needs to run out there and thinking they're supposed to do like 4 to 8 touch points this next year for their referral sources, and they're all supposed to be gifts. You don't have to do any gifts, but when you know who your referral sources are, you're able to hone in on the things that would matter most to them. And if you do consider a gift as a part of your referral plan, one of those touch points that you're going to do, knowing who your referral sources are should drive the what you do. So when people always say, well, what gift should I give? I'm like, I don't know, because there's like 1,000 million different choices you could make. But if you know who your referral sources are, it'll help narrow the field, and then we can come up with something really good. For instance, when I was a productivity and business coach, and it was that practice that I grew with this Referrals Without Asking strategy, I recognized that a majority of my top referral sources were business owners who were also parents. And so from that perspective, I decided to recognize what we call an off-guard holiday, which is Mother's Day and Father's Day, because my referral sources are parents, right? And so that's something I could do that no one would expect to hear from the business and productivity coach they refer to on Mother's Day. It's going to catch their attention. It's going to be memorable and meaningful. Mother's Day, one year I did a Wonder Woman water bottle, but my logo, my name, my website, none of that was actually on the water bottle. Once they removed the card from the water bottle, it was a gift for them to say thank you and to remind them that they are a hero. And so, but I couldn't do that if all my referral sources, right, were people who aren't parents or single people who haven't gotten married yet, right? Like it just depends on who your referral sources are, depends on how you're going to connect with them. And you cannot make that decision until you see their names in black and white and recognize who are your referral sources by name. What's the list of them? Whether you have 3 or 33, you've got to know who they are before you can start figuring out how to take care of them.
And that makes me think of 2 things that prior firms I'd worked at had done. One, you mentioned off-guard holidays. One of the partners I'd worked for years ago would send cards to basically everybody on Valentine's Day. And again, it's a card. He reminded people he existed. And it was so off guard that, once you've gotten the first one, in the future, you were ready for it. But it was kind of an odd choice of holidays to have picked. The other, and this was when I was at a bigger firm, they'd figured out that one of their best, they probably wouldn't call it a referral source gift, but it was both client appreciation and referral source, renting out a movie theater for the Thursday night before major releases and saying, bring whatever kids you want. That was the best return on marketing spend, whether you call it referral thank you or current client thank you, because all of the 9 to 15-year-olds and some of the young attorneys working at the firm loved the fact that we got to go see the movies for free early with an open access to the snack bar. And
Yep.
it's not just the gift, it's something that here's something special.
Yeah. And, there's definitely times when you're doing something that's client appreciation in nature and you can actually kill 2 birds with one stone and include your referral sources in it. I always say the language we use when we're making that invite matters, but absolutely. If you're going to rent out a movie theater, you need to get your bang for your buck, and you should have your clients there as client appreciation, but also your referral sources.
Great. Stacey, this has been a lot of fun. Before I let you go, what is one good first step for our listener to take when they want to get started down this path of taking better care of their referrals?
I think the number one thing you can do, we have this quiz on our website. It is just staceybrownrandall.com/quiz. It's an easy way to get there. I know you'll probably put this in the show notes, but it's a 9-question quiz that helps you figure out where are you starting from with your ability to build out a strategy to take care of your referral sources. And in 9 questions, you're going to know very quickly, are you a beginner? Are you a Referral Ninja beginner? Or are you a Referral Ninja Master? Where I want everyone to land is at the master level. 98% won't land there. When they take the quiz, you'll land at a different level. But it'll also then kind of show you, hey, here's the gaps you have based on how you answer the questions. And then here's the things you need to do to close the gaps. I think that's a great place to start on this journey to decide, hey, I want to get serious about my referrals. I want to take control of them. And I want to do it in a way that I'm focusing on the relationship, never the asking or any of the other gimmicky things.
Excellent. Stacey, we will have contact information for everything else for you, but is there anything else you want to highlight before we let you go?
The only thing we didn't really hit on and that I would make sure people understand is anything you're going to do around your referral sources starts first and foremost with knowing who your referral sources are. That is the very first step. Everything builds from there in terms of what you do. So if you've never gone through your data and figured out where your clients came from, I highly recommend you go through that step and figure out, hey, who are my clients that are coming by referrals and who are those referral sources? Because that should create your master list of referral sources.
Excellent. Stacey, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. You can find more info on us and get your free white paper on client service at 5starcounsel.com. You can get in touch with me at john@5starcounsel.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found and leave us a review wherever you can.